stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Star Wars Canon Library. You heard the man, there were stories, and they're all true. My name's Brian, I'm the librarian here at the Canon Library, where we're keeping all of the canon in chronological order for you guys. This is our Monday mailbag episode, guys. I know I didn't do one last week. I think it was on Facebook I actually did it. But I'm back. We are doing Monday mailbag, and all we do here is answer your mailbag questions. How do you get your question on the Star Wars Canon Library? Simply email it to me at starwarscanonlibrary@gmail.com, or you can also visit our website, www.starwarscanonlibrary.com, for the entire timeline of canon material. Sorry, I got tongue-tied there for a second. And there's also a contact page there. You can email us from that as well. Each week I'll go through and pick out a few and answer them right here on Monday Mailbag. So without further ado, let's just jump right into this. I've got 5 questions lined up for you guys this week from a variety of people, and we are going to, like I said, get right into this. So the first question this week comes from Jenny Gamble, and Jenny says, "Hey Brian, I love your channel. Do you think Lucasfilm will ever start releasing new Legend stories separate from the canon timeline? Thanks, and keep up the great work." Thanks for the question, Jenny. And as a short answer, I'm going to say no. However, there is a caveat to that as well. I don't see how it would be a problem if they ever did. The only reason I'm going to say no, I don't think they ever will, is they simply they came out and said everything from now on is going to be canon. Everything. Now, look, the EU was never canon to begin with. The Legend stuff was never canon to begin with. George Lucas never sanctioned any of that. He never he said when he made his prequels, some of that material was already there, so he tried to stay true to some of it, but he didn't make all the rest of it canon. So he never really saw it as canon in the first place. With this new canon timeline, everything from here on out is canon. Now, with the EU, we did have different layers of canon, different levels of canon, and we're kind of at that level now with the new canon, to be honest. And we've got canon, we've got canon adjacent, we've got pseudo canon. Like we're slowly getting back to the place we were in the EU, whether we want to admit it or not. Some examples, canon adjacent is like the Freemaker adventures, the Lego TV show that they've got. That's canon adjacent. Pseudo canon, technically they're not canon, but they kind of are. The novelizations of episodes 1, 2, and 3 that came out years ago, technically those Del Rey novels are not canon in the same way the novelizations now are of like Rogue One, 7, and 8. Those novels are kind of what I call pseudo-canon, where the parts in the book that match the movie are canon, but everything else is not canon. Unlike the novelizations of like 7, 8, and Rogue One, where everything that's not in the movie that's in the book is canon on top of what happened in the film. So it's kind of a double-sided sword there, but no, to answer your question, no, I don't think they ever will. Now, like I said, I don't see a problem with them doing it. Anybody who's going to read EU stuff and care enough about whether or not it's canon, it's all they got to do is release it and put a Legends banner on it. That's all they got to do. Anybody who's reading Star Wars is going to know that this is Legends and that's canon. So I don't see how it would ever be an issue, to be honest. But thank you for the question, Jenny. I do appreciate it. Second question this week comes from Jeff Taylor, and Jeff asks, when are they going to tell us what Luke was up to between episodes 6 and 7? We need to know. Love the videos and look forward to your uploads. Thanks in advance for answering my question. No problem, Jeff. Thank you for the question. And we already know what Luke has been up to over those 30 years. We've already been told. We don't necessarily have to see it to know that it happened, but we do know that it happened. We know that Shattered Empire, we know he was going for that force tree that the Empire had. We know he got it and gave one of them to the Damarins, and he kept one. We still don't know what happened to that thing, because the one on the island that he had was not the tree he got from them. That tree was thousands of years old. But we know what he was up to. We know in Battlefront he was there for a star compass in one of the planets. We know, that the only reason he started a new Jedi temple was because of Ben. He tells Rey, I started a temple. I took Ben as a student, plus a handful of students, which means he started it because of Ben. We know from Legends of Luke Skywalker, he was going around the galaxy, looking at different cultures, different ways that they looked at the Force. Like, in Legends of Luke Skywalker, there was one story, he went to an ocean planet, and they referred to the Force as the Tide, and he was learning how they used it, and their techniques, and some of their wisdom. And, that's what he was doing. He was going around the galaxy, learning about the Force, and, he didn't really seek out the first Jedi Temple until after Ben fell to the dark side, because he went into hiding, and Han told Rey, the people who knew him best think he went looking for the first Jedi Temple. They didn't know for sure, but even that happened after the fall of Ben Skywalker to Kylo Ren. So we know what Luke was up to. We just haven't seen it yet. Do we necessarily have to see it? It'd be kind of cool, but do we have to? No, I'm gonna say no. They've told us that is what he was up to, so I'm going to take it at face value, So thanks for the question, Jeff. I appreciate it. Question number 3 this week comes from Eddie Molidor. I want to say I'm pronouncing your name right. And Eddie says, do you think after episode 9 comes out, the fan base will have a better appreciation for The Last Jedi? Love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for the question, Eddie. And before I answer your question, I want to address something. I don't want to say that the fan base as a whole will have a different appreciation. I think right now there's a part of the fan base that doesn't have an appreciation for The Force Awakens, and there's a part that does. It's not cut and dry. The whole fan base didn't hate Last Jedi. Actually, majority of the fan base liked it. There was a group of people that didn't. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you didn't like Last Jedi, it's fine. You didn't like Last Jedi. It wasn't for you, apparently. So, but your question is, do you think people will have a better appreciation for it after 9 comes out? And I'm going to say yes. I think so. And I'll use Rebels as an example here. When we were watching the first 3 seasons of Rebels, there were some episodes in there where we're like, really? Space whales? Hyperspace whales? That's kind of stupid. There's really no need for that at all. And then we didn't make sense of it at the time, and some people were like, man, this show sucks. They're putting stuff like that in there. But then you come to season 4, and you come to the finale of season 4, and you realize that other than the Puffer Pig episode, which I still can't figure out, other than that episode, there was not a single filler episode in that series. Everything ended up coming back around full circle and mattering in the end. The hyperspace whales, the kids floating out in space, Admiral Sato's nephew that was floating out there, they had a part in the last episode, everything had, and now when you watch Rebels, everything makes sense, because oh, that's going to come into play later, okay, got it. And I feel like the films are going to be the same way, because we're only halfway through this trilogy right now, and people are complaining because nothing makes sense. Well, you don't have the whole story yet. You're only halfway through it. You have 2 movies out of 3. I think once we get to that 3rd film, everything is going to kind of be tied up with a neat little bow, and you're going to go back and watch them in order now and be like, okay, I got it now. Because remember, not everybody liked Empire Strikes Back when it first came out. Now that Last Jedi is out, a lot of people who are old enough to go see Empire in theaters are coming forward and saying not everybody liked it. We just didn't have social media back then to tell everybody we didn't like it. So, and now Empire is viewed by many to be the best Star Wars movie ever. So I say give it time, wait until you get the whole story before you start freaking out about episode 8. But to answer your question, yes, I really, really do think that once 9 comes out, people will look at 8 a lot differently. So, and then also with 8, look, if you didn't like episode 8, go read the novelization. That will give you a different appreciation for episode 8 than just watching the film. I'm just saying, I love the film, but I love the novel even more. So keep that in mind. Thanks for the question, Eddie. I appreciate it. Question number 4 this week. I really hope I say your last name right. It's from Victor Trillo. I'm going to say it's Trio. I'm hoping it's Trio. Fingers crossed. And Victor says, with so many Star Wars films coming out over the next decade, do you think at some point Lucasfilm will start releasing 2 movies a year? Is that too much Star Wars being released? Big fan, Brian. Keep it up. Thanks, man. I'm glad to have you as a follower. Thanks for the question. And you bring up a great point. We have several Star Wars films in the works right now, 10 minimum, that we know for a fact are coming. And we don't know when they're coming. But you bring up an interesting point about releasing 2 films a year. Because right now, whether you guys like it or not, Rian Johnson is still doing his trilogy of films. Last Jedi made $1 billion. It's still happening. Whether you guys like it or not, Rian Johnson still has his trilogy. So that's 3 films that are coming. You've got the guys from Game of Thrones. Benioff and Weiss. They are doing a series of films. Now, when they said they're doing those films, they didn't say a trilogy. They didn't say a film. They didn't say a duology. They said a series, which to me means 4 or more, right? So if we even estimate on the low side there and say 4 films from them and 3 from Rian Johnson, and we already know 10, 11, and 12 are coming. The man, oh man, and his name is escaping me right now. I know some of you guys are going to yell at me whenever I say who it is. I can't think of his name right now. But the guy that's replaced Kenny Baker, since Kenny Baker is no longer with us, to play R2. Something V. I can't think of his name. God, it's going to bug me. But anyway, he's already messaged one of our followers and said that he's already signed on for 10, 11, and 12 to be R2. So we know 10, 11, and 12 is coming. And we know we got 3 films from Rian Johnson and at least 4 from Benioff and Weiss, which that's 10 films. All right, so I'm of the mindset they're going to take a break between 9 and 10. They're almost going to have to, with 7 other films at least in the works. And, 2020 will be the last A Star Wars Story film. I think they're going to do away with that subtitle, by the way. But let's just say for argument's sake that it's Obi-Wan. I don't know that it's going to be, but let's just say for argument's sake it is. So next year we've got Episode 9, and then 2020 we've got Obi-Wan. 2021 is probably going to be Rian Johnson's first trilogy film. Okay, 22 is going to be the first from Benioff and Weiss, and then back and forth between Rian Johnson and the Game of Thrones showrunners. It's probably going to switch back and forth between those two for a while, depending on how many films they do. Hell, they might even do the Benioff-Weiss film first, and then, if they have 4 of those films, and then sprinkle the other 3 in between. That's if they stay at 1 film a year. And then afterwards, I figure they'll pick back up and say, hey guys, guess what? We are working on Star Wars Episode 10. We're going to continue the Skywalker saga. So that's if they do 1 film a year. Now, if they go to 2 films a year, I could see them taking a shorter break between 9 and 10, but I feel like it's going to come way sooner. I'm of the mindset we're going to get a nice break between 9 and 10, build up anticipation for the next trilogy, wherever that might be, whenever that might be. Otherwise you're looking at films up through 2030 at this point. So do I think they're going to go to 2 films a year? Probably at some point. I don't know when. If I was a betting man, I would say 2021 will be the first year we get 2 Star Wars movies in a year. I'm not counting Episode 8 to Solo because that's technically 2 separate years, even though they're 6 months apart. That's still 2 separate years. That's 2018? That was 2017, now 2018. So I still count that as 2 separate years. I think we're going to go to 2 films a year once we get through whatever the last standalone film is, to be honest. I think they're only doing the 3 films that have A Star Wars Story subtitled to it. But your other question is that too much Star Wars being released? That's an interesting question, because even for somebody like me who keeps track of all this stuff, and my passion is Star Wars, I relate everything I do in life to Star Wars. Star Wars is what has made me who I am. I'm going to say, yeah, that may be too much Star Wars. Because somebody asked me last week on Mailbag, and I answered it on Facebook. Somebody asked me if I ever get burnt out reading the novels, trying to keep up with all this stuff. And the honest answer with that is yes, I really do sometimes. There are times when a novel comes out where I'm just like, oh my God, and I have to fight my way through it. Or, it's so easy to distract me. Something like Assassin's Creed Origins came out, and I was like, oh, well, yep, gonna be playing that for a while. So with being too much Star Wars stuff, there's a few novels I've picked up where I'm just like, oh my God, is this over yet? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I just want this to be over. Not because it was a bad book, but because I'd read so much Star Wars stuff. A week ago, I read 30 comics and half another novel in a day just to get to the next novel so I could get caught up. And I was really burnt out by the end of the day on Star Wars. I am not going to lie. It was really tough. And then, like I said, for somebody like me having to keep track of all this, not having to, but wanting to, dedicating myself to it, it does take a level of dedication once in a while. Now, you have to keep in mind also, with 2 films a year, is that too much Star Wars? Keep in mind also, they're releasing novels around every single film release. They're releasing comics around every single film release. I mean, all kinds of stuff. We've got 2 TV shows in the work. We've got a live action and an animated in the works. They are saturating the market with Star Wars, right? So the question is, when do you hit the point that too much is too much? Where do we draw that line at? I think we're going to find out. Look, if you look at the timing for the movies, Solo comes out in a couple months. I think we're almost exactly like 7 weeks away from it. Or, I'm sorry, 9 weeks. We're 9 weeks away from it. So we're 9 weeks away from Solo, and then we're going to have an 18-month break until episode 9, right? So that's going to be a nice break. We've got 2 main novels coming out and a 5-issue comic series coming out at the same time as Solo. And then months later, whenever the Blu-ray release, we'll probably get the novelization of Solo, okay? And we've got another Thrawn novel in the works, and I think that's everything that's been announced as far as novels go right now. So you've got this 18-month period, and remember, every saga film has got this 4-month lead up to it, journey to whatever the title for the film is, Journey to the Force Awakens, Journey to the Last Jedi. And it's just a crap load of novels and comics and everything leading up to that film. And that's usually about 4 months out. So episode 9 is going to release in December of 19. So about September of 19, you're going to start seeing novels leading up to episode 9, comics leading up to it. But between the Blu-ray release and novelization of Han Solo up to that point, what do we have coming out? I feel like we're going to get a nice little break where it's going to be like it used to be when they first started doing the canon. 1 novel every few months, every couple months. You know what I mean? And, you know, a couple of new comic series here and there. They'll probably focus on the main ongoing series for a while. But I feel like they're going to take a step back and let everybody kind of catch their breaths. And then when episode 9 kicks off, the journey to whatever the title for episode 9 is going to be, I think that's when you better buckle your seatbelt and get ready, put on a helmet, because it's getting ready to get insanely crazy. I think leading up to episode 9, we're going to be saturated with stuff, because it's going to be the final film in a trilogy wrapping together an entire saga. It's going to be this massive film event. Whether we want to admit it or not, whether you like JJ directing it or not, episode 9 is going to be a film event, okay? Just like Avengers Infinity War coming up next month. A film event, a cinematic event. So they're going to be hitting that really hard. By then, we'll probably know when the next couple films are going to be coming out. And they're probably they're not going to waste any time. Disney bought Star Wars to make money, and that's what they're doing. They're not going to sit on it for a couple years, wait for everybody to catch their breaths, and then hit it. If they're going to do that, they're still going to be releasing stuff, the comics, novels, stuff, but they're going to do it during that gap between the film, the 18-month gap we got. That's where the break's going to be. After that, it's going to be balls to the wall, crazy, trying to keep up with everything. But I guess we will find out then if that is going to be too much Star Wars. And if it gets to a point where I can't keep up with this stuff anymore, I may have to try to start thinking about bringing somebody on and dictating that they have to read this novel by this time, and we got to get reviews out and stuff. I might have to start doing that. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I'm kind of anxious to see how it's going to go. But I'm excited to see how it goes. So I hope that answered your question, Victor. Thank you for being a follower, brother. And the final question this week comes from Paige Decker. And Paige says, I always hear you talk so positively about the new canon. Is there anything in the new canon you would change, take away, add as of right now? Any books or films or comics you didn't like, things you thought should have been done differently? Thanks for the question, Paige. And you're right. I do talk very positively about the new canon. I try to, at least. I see a lot of people online dogging the new canon quite a bit, saying the EU is the only true canon. Well, like I said earlier, even George Lucas didn't consider it canon, so whatever. But I do talk very positively about the new canon, and the reason is I've kept up with it so well. With the EU, I never could keep up with it that well, and I ended up giving up on the EU. Once in a while, I got to a point where I couldn't keep up with it, and I ended up putting Kenobi down. That was the last book I read, was Kenobi. And then after that, once in a while, I'd read one that kind of caught my eye, but like the Bane trilogy. I'll get to Bane trilogy in a second. But with the new canon, it was one of those things where it gave me a second chance where I could keep up on all this stuff. And as I read, and when I read it as it comes out, I'm recording it in my brain as new Star Wars material, new Star Wars lore. So I do talk about it very positively. However, I'm not blind. I'm not. The new canon does have its ups and downs. It does have its flaws. It does have its, for lack of a better term, it does have its black sheep pieces of material, stuff that doesn't belong. For an example, Heir to the Jedi. It was the third novel they released in the new canon, and it was crap. It was so bad. Heir to the Jedi was really bad. I just finished recording my top rankings for the novels for the year, and Heir to the Jedi is still at the bottom. I mean, complete, absolute bottom. It doesn't even hold a candle to anything whatsoever. The Chewbacca comic wasn't good. They did a 5-issue Chewbacca run that was really bad. They did a 5-issue Leia run that the story wasn't bad, but the artwork just got worse with every issue. They did a one-shot of 3PO that was not good. They told the same story in Lego Force Awakens better and made it more entertaining and more fun. The DJ comic that just came out, I know Chris Stolley from Journal of the Jedi, he's not a real big fan of it. As a matter of fact, he hates it. He called it garbage. I read it. I can see why he didn't like it as much. I didn't care for it. I wasn't like, yeah, it's great. It was one of those that was like, okay, I'm kind of indifferent about it. What else was really bad? I don't want to say it was bad. The first Aftermath book was really rough for me to get through. Mainly because it was all set up leading into the next two books. But there are things in the new canon. Look, there's something they did in the new canon I'm not a fan of, and it's the Kyber crystal color change thing. I hated that so much. The fact, I mean, in the EU, the Sith made synthetic red crystals. They were synthetic. That's why they were red, and that was why they had red lightsabers. Now they have it set up to where you pour your anger and your hatred and your pain into it, and it bleeds. So, whatever. And then a crystal can decide what color it wants to be based off of your force affinity. Yeah, okay, whatever. That's one thing I really didn't like. If I had to change anything, I'd probably go back and finish Clone Wars. Dave Filoni deserves that. He deserves to have a definitive finish to his Clone Wars series. Anything I would add, man? I mentioned Darth Bane trilogy earlier. The Darth Bane trilogy for me is... they could make it canon tomorrow, and I'd put the paperbacks on the canon shelf until I could get the hardbacks. And then I would buy them again to put on the canon shelf so they'd be hardback. I absolutely love the Bane trilogy, balls to bone. That thing is so good from the first page of the first book to the last page of the third book. So great. I actually just got Richard J to read it, and he loved it. But like I said, there are things in there that I would change, things I really haven't been a fan of. But I do overall think it's been a good canon. So far, everything has really fit together very well. There's only been a couple instances where you're just like, that doesn't match up with that. But it's all from a certain point of view, apparently. I mean, but, you know, and there was one stunt they did pull, and I can understand why they did it. Excuse me. I can understand why they did it. An example of retconning itself already, and that is the end of the Force Awakens novel. We had a scene where Poe met Rey for the first time, and he said, "Hi, I'm Poe," and she said, "Hi, I'm Rey," and he's like, "I know," and that's kind of the way it went. And then in Last Jedi, the film, they put that scene in the film after it had already happened in the novel for the Force Awakens. Now, they retconned it from the novel because they thought more people were going to read the novel and show everybody that Poe and Rey were going to have this kind of maybe a little love interest thing going, right? But not enough people read the novel, and then everybody started putting theories out being like, oh, Poe and Finn are going to be... Poe and Finn. What the hell? Poe and Finn, Jesus Christ. It's late. I'm tired. They're going to be the first gay couple in Star Wars. No, they're not. Finn and Rey are going to get together. No, they're not, you know. But I feel like they put that in because they knew not everybody read that novel, so they wanted to put it in a medium where everybody would know that it was happening. So that's the only reason they put that in episode 8. One thing I wish I would change is, I mentioned it earlier with, maybe I didn't mention it earlier, I thought I did, The Last Jedi novelization. I just finished that the other day, and I love The Last Jedi, don't get me wrong, I love that film. I'm one of those people that loved it. And that's just my opinion. If you don't like my opinion and you can't handle that, I would rather have followers that respect other people's opinions and respectfully disagree. I've had people say, well, you said you liked Rogue One, so I'm just wrote this comment to say goodbye. Whatever, I don't need you. But anyway, I'd rather, look, I don't care if you liked it or not. We can still be friends, you know? But I liked Last Jedi, and I've just finished the novelization. And I realized while reading it, usually when you get a novelization for a film, it's the novelization of the film with a couple extra little scenes added, right? This was something different. This was a new breed of novelization. And it was so expanded upon that I can't help but feel like, and I know it didn't come out this way, but I can't help but feel like they wrote the novelization, or they wrote the novel, and then decided to make a movie off of it and made it episode 8. That's what it feels like to me. And it was a good adaptation of a good novel. That's what it feels like. And part of me really wishes episode 8 would have been whatever the next story after that would have been, after The Last Jedi would have been, whatever, 9 might be. And the story of The Last Jedi should have been just strictly a novel. I feel like it should have been. It should have been strictly a novel, and then whatever episode 8 was going to be should have taken place after that. So, but like I said, I do love episode 8, but it's just that novel was so good. But I would change something. I would change that. But yeah, that's really everything I can think of that I would really change. Yeah, that's it really. Now I don't know about the new Solo novels coming out. I don't know what is actually going to happen in those. I'm not one of those people that's going to sit here and be like, I really wish they weren't doing a Han Solo movie, because I'll take whatever they give me. They're in charge of it. They do what they feel like they need to do, and I'll tell you whether I like it or not, So I can't say anything about that as of now, but I hope that answers your question, Paige. Like I said, I do talk positively about it, but not all the time. There are things in there that I don't like. There are things in there that I'm just like, oh man, really, you had to do that? But I do thank you for the question, and I thank you for being a follower, Paige. And the same goes for everybody who sent in a question. I do appreciate you guys taking the time to participate and sending in questions. And without you guys, this channel would be nothing. So I do thank you guys very, very much for that. So that's going to do it for this episode of Mailbag. Make sure to visit the website, www.starwarscanonlibrary.com. You can check out the entire timeline there, cover art for everything, a list of upcoming canon, and a contact us page where you can send in questions for Monday Mailbag. Make sure to visit the Facebook page as well. Give us a thumbs up there. And if you guys like this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you really liked it, hit that subscribe button. Every Monday we do Mailbag. Every Thursday we've got Journal of the Jedi. And on the Facebook page, every Saturday night from here on out, I will be doing a live Q&A answering your guys' questions, like I said, live. So make sure to tune in for that. And guys, as always, this is Brian signing off. May the Force be with you. Hey guys, make sure to check out the website. It is www.starwarscanonlibrary.com. You can email us anytime with any questions for any Star Wars canon material whatsoever. It's just starwarscanonlibrary@gmail.com. Make sure to check out our Facebook page as well. It is facebook.com/starwarscanonlibrary. If you guys like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. There's plenty more videos coming where this one came from. If you really liked it, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I'd sure appreciate it.